Picture this. It is 3 o'clock in the morning. The electricity grid in your city has just failed. A storm, a grid overload, a cyber attack. It doesn't matter why. The hum of your refrigerator stops. That comforting, artificial heartbeat of your modern kitchen dies. Inside that white, insulated box, the clock starts ticking. You have a block of mild cheddar sitting on the middle shelf. It is wrapped in plastic, the supposed miracle material of our age. It is soft. It is orange. Or it is pasteurized, homogenized, and certified safe by 20 different government agencies. Yet, within 48 hours of that power outage, that block of cheese will begin to sweat. It will weep a strange, oily liquid inside its plastic, suffocating bag. By day 4, it will soften into a rancid paste. By day 7, a blue-green bloom of mold will colonize the surface, signaling that it has become toxic waste. This is your food system. It is fragile. It is on life support. It requires a constant, uninterrupted stream of electricity and artificial refrigeration just to exist without rotting. You have been sold a lie of convenience that is actually a cage of dependency. Now rewind the clock 2,000 years. Cut to the dry, scorching plains of Syria or the freezing, mud-soaked forests of Germania. A Roman legionary marches under the weight of 60 pounds of armor and equipment. He has no cooler. He has no ice. He has no plastic wrap. He has been marching for 3 months away from any supply line. He reaches into his leather satchel and pulls out a block of pecorino romano. It does not weep. It does not sweat. It is as hard as a rock. In fact, if he were to drop it on his foot, it might break a toe. If he were to throw it at an enemy, it would crack a skull. This block of cheese has been exposed to the sweltering sun, the freezing rain, and the sweat of a marching army. It has not seen a single degree of refrigeration. Yet when he takes his dagger, his pugio, and hacks off a shard to eat, it is perfect. It is savory, crystallized, and exploding with energy. It is not just food, it is a battery. It is a dense brick of survival that will not rot, will not mold, and will not fail him even if the empire itself collapses. This is the paradox that should keep you awake at night. How is it that a civilization with satellites, nuclear power, and the internet cannot produce a block of cheese that lasts a week without a refrigerator, while a civilization that wiped its backside with a sponge on a stick created a dairy product that could outlast a war? The answer is uncomfortable. It is a truth that the modern food industry has spent billions of dollars trying to hide from you. The reason your modern cheese rots is not because of nature. It is because of greed. It is because of a fundamental shift in how we view value. You see, and in the medieval world, and in the ancient world before it, food preservation was a matter of life and death. The goal was permanence. The goal was to take the perishable abundance of summer, the milk that flows when the grass is green, and lock it into a physical form that could survive the starving months of winter. They were practicing applied physics and biochemistry without even knowing the words. They were fighting entropy. But today, the goal of the modern food industry is not permanence. It is volume. It is turnover. It is selling you water at the price of protein. When you buy that soft, pliable, easy-melt cheese from the supermarket, you are not buying a preserved dairy product. You are buying a matrix of water held together by chemical emulsifiers and gums designed to look like cheese. Water is heavy. Water is cheap. If a manufacturer can pump 40% more water into a block of cheddar and keep it solid enough to slice, they have just increased their profit margin by 40%. But water is also the enemy. Water is the playground of bacteria. Water is the catalyst for rot. By prioritizing profit over preservation, we have engineered food that wants to die. We have engineered food that needs the life support of the refrigerator. We have forgotten the ancient alchemy that turned milk into stone. This is not a cooking show. We are not here to discuss flavor profiles or wine pairings. We are here to investigate a crime scene. The victim is your independence. The weapon is the water content in your grocery basket, and the suspect is a supply chain that profits from your fragility. In this investigation, we are going to crack open the hard shell of history. We are going to look at the microscopic structure of the Roman military ration. We are going to expose the chemical shortcuts that turn modern cheese into a bacterial petri dish. And most importantly, we are going to show you how you can reclaim this lost technology. We will look at why a wheel of Parmesan is basically a diamond made of milk, and how you can store high-quality protein in your pantry for years with zero electricity, just like an emperor or a peasant. But first, I have a question for you, a serious one. Have you ever noticed that after eating a grilled cheese sandwich made with that shiny, plastic-wrapped American cheese, you feel heavy, bloated, sluggish? That isn't just carbs. That is your body trying to process a chemical experiment. That is your digestive system fighting against stabilizers that were never meant to be food. If you are tired of buying food that rots before you can eat it, or if you simply want to know how to survive when the lights go out and the fridge stops humming, you are in the right place. We are going back to the source. We are going back to the rock. Let's dig in. To understand why your food is failing you, we must first walk onto the floor of a modern industrial dairy factory. You might imagine a place filled with milk churns and craftsmen in white aprons monitoring curds with loving attention. Erase that image. Imagine instead a chemical refinery. Imagine stainless steel pipes stretching for miles, pumping a white slurry at high velocity. What you see in the grocery store aisle labeled American Singles or cheese food product is not cheese. It is a Frankenstein monster of the dairy world. The industry calls it reconstituted. That is a polite word for resurrected from the dead. They take scraps of old cheese, cheese that didn't make the grade, cheese that was too ugly to sell, and they grind it down. They dump this debris into a massive vat. But here is where the science gets twisted. If you melt real cheese, the fat separates from the protein. You get a greasy, oily mess. To prevent this, the modern factory adds a cocktail of chemical emulsifiers, sodium citrate, sodium phosphate, tartrates. These are salts, but not the kind you sprinkle on your dinner. These are industrial solvents designed to chemically modify the protein structure of the casein. They force the protein to relax, to open up, and to absorb water like a sponge. And there is the key: water. In the boardroom of a food conglomerate, water is the holy grail. If they can sell you water at the price of cheese, they win. By using these emulsifiers, they can trap moisture content of 40%, 50%, sometimes 60% inside that slice. It looks solid, but structurally, it is a liquid held in suspension. It is a ticking time bomb of bacterial potential. Then, they commit the final sin. They wrap this wet, chemically softened slab in airtight plastic. They vacuum seal it. They tell you this is for freshness. They are lying. Real cheese is a living thing. It breathes. It releases gas. It interacts with the air. When you suffocate a high-moisture protein block in plastic, you create a humid, anaerobic environment. This is not a preservation chamber. It is an incubator. It is the perfect breeding ground for pathogenic molds and anaerobic bacteria, the kind that make you sick, not the kind that flavor the cheese. The moment you break that seal, the clock starts sprinting. The moisture has nowhere to go. It sits on the surface, inviting rot. You are not storing food. You are managing decay. Now, let us leave the neon lights of the factory and step into the dim, cool air of a medieval dairy. Or perhaps a Roman outpost. The contrast is violent. Here there are no emulsifiers. There is no plastic. There is no vacuum sealer. There is only physics and biology applied with brutal efficiency. The ancient cheesemaker did not care about mouthfeel or meltability. They cared about one thing: survival. To survive, they had to solve a physics problem. They had to defeat the enemy of preservation. They had to defeat water activity. In scientific terms, we call this water activity. This is not just how wet something is. It is a measure of how much free water is available for microorganisms to drink. Bacteria are like armies. They need water to march. If the I is above 0.95, practically any bacteria can grow, including the deadly Clostridium botulinum. If you drop the below 0.85, most pathogens die of thirst. If you drop it below 0.60, even the hardiest molds struggle to survive. The medieval master realized that milk is mostly water, about 87%. To turn this perishable liquid into an eternal solid, they had to drive that water out. And they did it with a 3-stage assault that puts modern engineering to shame. Stage 1. The coagulation. Today, we use microbial rennet grown in labs from genetically modified mold. It is cheap. It is fast. It works in minutes. The ancients used natural rennet, an enzyme complex found in the fourth stomach of an unweaned calf. It was harvested with a knife, dried and soaked in brine. When added to milk, this enzyme, chymosin, acts like a precise pair of molecular scissors. It snips the hairy surface of the casein micelles, the protein bundles in milk. Once snipped, these proteins can no longer repel each other. They crash together. They bond. They form a solid mesh, trapping the fat and squeezing out the water. This was not a passive process, but this was a chemical ambush. Stage 2. The press. This is where the rock is born. In a modern factory, soft cheese is barely pressed. It is allowed to settle. But for a survival cheese like the Parmigiano or the Pecorino of the legions, the curds were broken into tiny grains, the size of wheat kernels. The smaller the grain, the less water it holds. Then, they were subjected to immense mechanical pressure. We are talking about massive stone weights, levers, and screw presses, exerting hundreds of pounds of force per square inch. This pressure physically forces the whey, the water, out of the protein network. It crushes the casein proteins so tightly together that they form a cross-linked lattice. It is polymerization, similar to how plastic is made, but entirely organic. The result is a density so high that a bacteria trying to move through it would be like a human trying to walk through a concrete wall. Stage 3. The salting and the rind. Though once the wheel was pressed, it was not wrapped in plastic. It was submerged in a brine bath, water so salty it would burn your skin, or it was rubbed dry with coarse rock salt. This utilized the principle of osmotic pressure. The salt draws the remaining moisture out from the center of the wheel to the surface, where it evaporates. Simultaneously, the salt penetrates inward. It acts as a gatekeeper. It kills the spoilage bacteria, but it allows the halophilic, salt-loving enzymes and beneficial bacteria to survive. These good bacteria do not rot the cheese, they digest it. Over months and years, they break down the long protein chains into amino acids. This is why aged cheese has those crunchy white crystals in it. Those aren't salt, they are tyrosine crystals, pure amino acid clusters formed by the slow breakdown of protein. Finally, the rind forms. The outer layer dries out completely, becoming a natural shell. It is hard. It is breathable. It allows moisture to escape but prevents dust and flies from entering. It is a selective membrane. A wheel of Parmesan sitting on a wooden shelf in 1300 AD was not exposed. It was armored. It was a fortress. Compare this to your plastic-wrapped cheddar. The plastic traps water in. The natural rind lets water out. The plastic ensures rot. The rind ensures evolution. The medieval cheese gets harder, drier, and more concentrated every day it sits. It improves with age. The modern cheese degrades with age. One is a living asset that gains value. The other is a liability that turns into slime. This was not magic. It was not superstition. It was a mastery of water control that we have sacrificed on the altar of convenience. We stopped building fortresses of nutrition and started building water balloons of fat. And when the logistics chain breaks, when the trucks stop moving and the power fails, the water balloons will burst. But the fortress? The fortress will stand. If you require proof that this ancient technology is superior to the modern industrial alternative, do not look at a laboratory report funded by a dairy corporation. Look at the map of the ancient world. Look at the empires that conquered the known globe. They did not do it on empty stomachs, and they certainly did not do it with refrigerators strapped to their backs. Consider the Roman legion. The greatest fighting force in antiquity was, effectively, a machine powered by hard cheese. By historical records and military logistics manifests from the 1st century AD reveal a stunning fact. The standard daily ration for a legionary on campaign included 25 ounces of wheat and a significant portion of Caseus aridus, dried, hard cheese. This was not a snack. This was the fuel of conquest. Imagine a legionary marching 20 miles a day, building forts, digging trenches, and fighting in hand-to-hand combat. The caloric burn was immense, it easily exceeding 4,000 calories a day. To sustain this with fresh meat would be a logistical nightmare. Meat is heavy. Meat is 75% water. Meat rots within hours of slaughter in the heat of the Mediterranean summer. To rely on fresh meat would be to tether the army to a herd of cattle, slowing the advance to a crawl. But hard cheese is the tactical opposite. It is the original MRE, meal ready to eat. By removing the water, the Romans condensed the nutritional value of gallons of milk into a compact portable brick. Let us look at the numbers. They are undeniable. 100 grams of fresh modern beef contains roughly 250 calories and 26 grams of protein. But it also contains heavy, useless water. Now take 100 grams of Parmigiano Reggiano or an ancient dry pecorino. It contains over 400 calories and 38 grams of protein. It is nearly twice as energy-dense. When a legionary carried a block of pecorino, the soldier was carrying pure, bioavailable energy. There was no dead weight. There was no waste. This cheese could sit in a leather satchel in the scorching sun of Syria for months and not spoil. In fact, the heat would only cause the oils to sweat slightly, further concentrating the flavor and hardness. It was a food source that thrived in chaos. Historians often say the Roman legions marched on their stomachs. It is more accurate to say they marched on fermented milk solids. Without this technology, without the ability to preserve protein without salt-curing meat, which requires massive amounts of salt, or smoking, which requires fuel and time, the expansion of the empire would have ground to a halt. The logistics of feeding 100,000 men across 3 continents would have collapsed. The Pax Romana was built on a foundation of cheese harder than the roads they walked on. But the evidence extends far beyond the military history books. It is buried in the earth, waiting for us to find it. Archaeology gives us the ultimate quality control test. In 2018, archaeologists working in the necropolis of Saqqara in Egypt, near the tomb of Thales, made a startling discovery. Inside a broken jar, buried in the sand for over 3,200 years, they found a solidified whitish mass. Chemical analysis confirmed it. Cheese, 3,000 years. Now, obviously, you would not want to eat it today. But the fact that it exists at all is a miracle of biochemistry. The protein structure had remained intact enough to be identified. The fat had not completely disintegrated. The method of production, acid coagulation using a starter culture, had created a material so stable that it outlasted the civilization that made it. Compare that to the plastic-wrapped slice in your fridge. If you buried that cheese food product in the sand, the plastic would last forever, but the organic matter inside would liquefy and vanish within weeks, consumed entirely by rot. The ancient cheese survived because it was chemically stable. The modern cheese dies because it is chemically confused. Furthermore, we must address the biology of the human gut. This is where the modern failure becomes personal. Millions of people today claim to be lactose intolerant. They eat dairy and they get sick. They bloat. They feel pain. and they assume their bodies are broken. The body is not broken. The system is broken. Fresh milk contains lactose, milk sugar. To digest it, you need the enzyme lactase. If you stop producing that enzyme, you cannot digest the sugar, and the bacteria in your gut ferment it, causing gas and distress. This is biology. But the medieval cheesemaker solved this problem centuries ago. The process of making hard-aged cheese is essentially a pre-digestion process. When you add the culture, the lactic acid bacteria, to the milk, those bacteria have one job: eat the sugar. They consume the lactose and convert it into lactic acid. This is what gives cheese its tang. As the cheese ages, 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, the bacteria continue to work. By the time you get a block of 2-year-old Parmesan, the lactose content is effectively zero. The bacteria have eaten it all. The work of digestion has already been done in the aging room, but not in your stomach. Modern fresh cheeses, or worse, processed cheeses that add milk solids back in for texture, are loaded with lactose. We are feeding people a substance their bodies cannot handle, while the ancient solution sits on the shelf, ignored. The ancients didn't know what a molecule was, but they knew that green, fresh cheese made the stomach rumble, and old, hard cheese gave the body strength. They listened to the feedback loop of reality. We listen to marketing. Science supports the old ways. The density of calcium in aged cheese is astronomical compared to fresh milk because it is concentrated. The bioavailability of the protein is higher because the long chains have been broken down into peptides and amino acids during the aging process. So when you hold a piece of true, traditional hard cheese, you are holding a triumph of science. You are holding a material that is bacteriologically safe, nutritionally dense, lactose-free, and shelf-stable without electricity. It is the perfect survival food. It is the perfect travel food. And it is the perfect proof that sometimes the only way to move forward is to look back. The evidence is in the history books. The evidence is in the tombs of Egypt. The evidence is in the chemical breakdown of the food itself. We have traded a diamond for a drop of water. We have traded security for softness. And in a world that is becoming increasingly unstable, softness is a liability you cannot afford. So, now you possess the knowledge. You understand the chemistry of the lie and the physics of the truth. But knowledge without action is just trivia. You cannot eat history. You must learn to navigate the minefield of the modern grocery store and reclaim the logistics of your own survival. How do you exit the system of soft rot and enter the system of hard survival? It begins with a choice. Step 1. The purge. Go to your refrigerator. Look at the cheese drawer. And if you see a package labeled cheese food, pasteurized processed cheese product, or American slices, realize what that object is. It is an emulsion of oil and water. It is a liability. It creates dependency on the power grid. Step 2. The hunt. When you enter the supermarket, or better yet, a local cheesemonger, you are looking for specific keywords. You are not looking for creamy or meltable. You are looking for aged. You are looking for raw. Look for the stamps of authenticity. In Europe, they use DOP or PDO protections. For Italian cheese, look for Parmigiano Reggiano or Pecorino Romano. For Dutch, Aged Gouda, over 18 months. For English, cloth-bound cheddar. These are not just fancy names, they are legal definitions of production methods that ban the use of industrial shortcuts. Check the ingredients list. It should be short: milk, salt, rennet, cultures. That is all. If you see sodium phosphate, modified food starch, or color added, put it back. And that is a chemistry experiment, not food. Check the age. You want a cheese that has already survived at least 12 months, preferably 24. If it has survived 2 years in a cave without rotting, it will survive in your pantry. You are buying time. You are buying the labor of the bacteria that have already purified the product for you. Step 3. The storage protocol. This is where most modern people fail. You bring a beautiful, hard block of Parmesan home, and what do? You wrap it in plastic and suffocate it in the fridge. Stop. If you have a true hard cheese with a natural rind, it does not strictly need refrigeration if the temperature is stable and cool. Below 15 to 18 degrees Celsius / 60 to 65 Fahrenheit is ideal, but they can withstand higher for periods. The Roman legion did not have a crisper drawer. To store cheese like a survivalist, you must let it breathe. Obtain parchment paper, or better yet, cheese paper, which is 2-ply to regulate humidity. Even better, use a clean linen cloth. Here is the vinegar hack that kept cheese safe in damp cellars for centuries. Dampen a cheesecloth with a little white vinegar. Wring it out until it is barely moist. Wrap the hard cheese in this cloth. The vinegar creates a mild acidic barrier on the surface that discourages mold, while the cloth allows the cheese to respire. If a little mold appears on the surface of a hard cheese, do not panic. Do not throw it away. Remember, the structure is dense. The roots of the mold cannot penetrate deep. Simply take a knife, scrape off the spot, and the cheese underneath is perfect. The modern instinct to discard an entire block because of a speck of surface bloom is a waste born of ignorance. Step 4. The math of survival. You will look at the price tag of a 24-month aged pecorino and think, this is expensive. The cheap block of orange cheddar is $5. The pecorino is $15. Do the math again. The orange cheddar is 40% water. You are paying for water. It has low nutritional density. You need to eat 100 grams to feel full. The pecorino is almost pure protein and fat. You eat 30 grams, and you are satisfied. You are satiated. In terms of price per gram of protein, the only metric that matters in survival, the hard cheese is often cheaper. You are investing in dense fuel, not diluted filler. And finally, we arrive at the philosophy of the matter. Why does this contrast exist? Why has the world moved from the hard, enduring difficult path to the soft, fleeting, easy one? It is because we have traded resilience for convenience. We have built a civilization that assumes the lights will never go out. We assume the trucks will always run. We assume the fridge will always hum. We have optimized our lives for a best-case scenario. But history is not a best-case scenario. History is a series of crises, interrupted by brief moments of calm. The medieval peasant, the Roman soldier, the Viking navigator, they lived in the worst-case scenario. They optimized their technology for the storm, for the famine, for the long march. When you hold that piece of rock-hard cheese, you are holding a philosophy of life. It is unyielding. It is concentrated. It does not ask for special treatment. It does not need to be plugged in. It is ready. The modern world wants you soft. It wants you dependent. It wants you to need the grocery store every 3 days because your food rots on the 4th. It wants you to need the power grid because your food spoils in the silence. The medieval way is different. It asks you to be hard. It asks you to value quality over quantity. It asks you to value permanence over speed. Don't just be a consumer of products. Be a curator of value. Fill your pantry with things that cannot die. Fill your life with skills that cannot be switched off. And the next time you see a block of plastic-wrapped orange sludge, walk past it. Go find the rock. Go find the cheese that could knock a man out. Cut a slice. Taste the crystals of time. And remember, in a world of rotting softness, be the thing that lasts. End of transmission.